we bring in Scott Grayson from 97.3ESPN.com to go through Grayson's grades. You notice two things, that in his list of A's is endless here. I mean, just scrolling down and down, a lot of A's, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, but he has both Doug Pederson and Jim Schwartz as getting A's, and I don't think that's anything that any of us can disagree with after they spanked the Giants last night, basically outclassed them despite losing even, two more starters to injuries. So we bring in Scotty. What's going on, Scott?
I'm doing good, boys. How you doing?
Very, very good. You know what's amazing to me, Scott? I was looking at statistics last night after the game. Adam and I were doing the Inside the Birds podcast, and the Eagles this year have the second best percentage on third down offense, and I think fourth best red zone. I mean, for all the offensive pitfalls, the two situations that are most important, I think, on offense are how you do on third down and how you do in the red zone. And they're top 5 in both with this cast of characters is unbelievable.
Well, I mean, just to be anywhere near that neighborhood with this cast of characters is just unreal. I mean, when you really do stop, I was thinking about this just driving home while I was listening to the Niners Seahawks game from MetLife Stadium last night. Just when you think about the list of injured guys, it is just amazing who they've had to replace, who they've replaced them with, and what they've done with them, and what Wentz has done with them. And it's, it's just unreal. It really is the only word I can think to use. And, when you hear stats like that, you kind of go, wow, I mean, how are they doing that? And a lot of it is really, I mean, they've done it all a lot, in this last month, this stretch they've been on since Miami. Just a totally different team and a totally different locker room, a totally different kind of chemistry, a belief in each other going on there. And it's as crazy as it is with the guys they're missing. I guarantee you the Seahawks did not want to draw this team. They did not want to draw this team. They especially did not want to have to travel cross country to play them. And I wouldn't be surprised if San Francisco doesn't really want to see them if the Eagles were to win and things fell where they would end up going out there either. Or Green Bay, for that matter. I mean, they're just a team that you just don't want to draw because something weird is going on, and they're finding ways to win.
Yeah, they remind me a little bit, and I think we've heard a couple of teams that you almost compare them to. If you remember, we should all remember 2010, right? The Aaron Rodgers-led Green Bay Packers had 16 guys on IR that year, came into Philadelphia, won on the road, which started their ascent to a Super Bowl championship. And even in the Super Bowl, they lost Woodson and Donald Driver, if I'm not mistaken, and won that game. So, yeah, it's amazing because the quarterback was playing so well, what they found. And I agree. I think in this situation, and I like that you gave Carson Wentz an A here, because the numbers alone, 23 of 40, 289 and 1 touchdown are not that special. But when you look at all the context around, that throw to Deontay Burnett, the one that actually counted, probably we've been talking about that today. That you put that in the vault with the one to Miles Sanders against Washington. He has just pulled about 2 or 3 each game. The Greg Ward one in each game that have probably meant the difference between a win and a loss.
Well, in the touchdown pass to Josh Perkins, thrown all the way across the field with the defender, not hanging on Perkins, but there. That was an amazing throw too, and. The thing that stood out to me when you just hear that he is the first player in NFL history to throw for over 4,000 yards and not have a receiver who had more than 500 is, when you just really stop and let that kind of bounce around on the inside of your head, it is, again, unreal. And it's amazing to see, and I think it's nice to see that, and clearly the Eagles handled this the right way, paying him last season, last offseason year, because what he's done this year would have probably cost more money. He has come out and he's checked off a lot of big boxes, and now he is going to get his first taste of the postseason. And let's see how he handles that. I mean, at this point, it does feel like obviously the Eagles are playing with house money, and even if they did lose to Seattle, would we all be disappointed? Yeah, probably, because Seattle's also banged up, and this is a winnable game. But at the end of the day, I mean, they prevented Dallas from getting to the postseason. Might have cost their coach's job. And, they won the division, which all in all, for what it's been, is just remarkable.
I want to go back to Coach Pederson for a second, and you gave him a grade of an A. And, Mosher, myself, and Broads talked about this a little bit earlier in the show. And his ability to coach when he has no hand of any significance dealt to him has become the norm. The new norm is Doug Pederson's success with practice squad guys and when his team is extremely depleted. So I just want you to talk about the job coach did yesterday, obviously against the Giants to get the win, and really what he's been able to do year after year once December rolls around with no one of really significance talent-wise at his disposal.
Yeah, I mean, here's where I'm impressed by Doug Pederson. I know other people have certainly criticized him for some in-game decisions and some things he's chosen to do within the game, but you cannot argue with the way that he's managed his teams, during the week and have them ready to play in games that they must win. This team has had their back against the wall. Almost every season here, the last 3 years. 1 year they go to the Super Bowl after losing their starting quarterback, who was at an MVP level. We've talked about that many times. Last year they had no business even getting through the first game against Chicago, again with Nick Foles at the helm, and they almost beat New Orleans. Who knows what would have happened if Alshon Jeffrey caught that ball late in the game. It's just remarkable what he's done with this team during the week, the way he chooses to manage them, the way that he handles it week to week. He remembers what it was like to be a player. I think these guys really respect that. He knows when to send the message. If you remember, they went with a padded practice after the loss to the Dolphins, kind of reset the tone and say this is not acceptable. And he knows when to give them that extra day off before a big game, and knowing that they've played well, they've earned it, let the body heal. Just do a walkthrough. Don't run too much at practice. And I just go back to that Cowboys game, which was really the biggest must-win game they've had, before yesterday. And you could tell one team was ready to play and one team wasn't, and that all stems from the coaches. So, and you talked about December. What he's done in December, I've mentioned this before. Andy Reid was big at having a lot of success at the end of the year. You go into the postseason with some momentum, and you never know what's going to happen. Look, you got a ticket to the dance now. You're one of 12 teams left playing. All you need to do is catch a little fire. It seems like they've got a little bit of that, and if they can kind of capitalize on that, you never know what's going to happen. Everybody thinks they know that, New Orleans is the team, or Green Bay is going to be tough in Lambeau, or the night after winning last night by the hair of their teeth are going to get on a roll. You never know. But the one thing's for sure, this team is definitely a lot more confident. Doug Pederson knows how to have them ready. And this is one of those times when you can sit back and say, you know what, this team has been to a Super Bowl recently. A lot of these guys remember what that was like, what it takes to get back there. And, again, you never know what's going to happen from this point on over the next couple of weeks.
Over the last 2 weeks, I think this defense did a tremendous job stopping the run. They did it with Zeke, and then yesterday they held Barkley to 10 yards before he had that 68-yarder, which was a shame. But what Jim Schwartz and this defense has been doing with the running back in particular, it's been amazing.
Yeah, if I would have told you after the Dolphins lost that, look, they're going to play Ezekiel Elliott and Saquon Barkley, hold them both to less than 100 yards, and, hey, oh, by the way, only give up 2 touchdowns to the Cowboys and Giants combined in 2 games, you would have gone, yeah, you're crazy. Look at what those corners were doing, how Devontae Parker had just torched them. It is, crazy to see what Schwartz has done as well. And we just gave a lot of accolades to Pederson, and I have given a lot of criticism to Schwartz. But his game plan the last 2 weeks has been really solid. Now, you're going to ramp up the level of play. They're going to have to deal with Russell Wilson again, and we'll see how Schwartz chooses to attack that. It was good to see Brandon Graham get back out there after he, had to leave the game yesterday a little bit. But defensively, those corners, the one big problem I continue to have, and I wish I knew where this was stemming from, but none of them ever, and I've said this before, turn around to play the ball. Rasul Douglas didn't yesterday. He could have been able to bat a ball away or even pick off several. How many of those passes yesterday hit a corner in the back of the numbers? Had they turned around, it's an easy pick. And I don't understand why these guys do not turn around to play the ball. Instead, they continue to run at and try to, block off the receiver, which, to me draws more penalties. But, they did okay yesterday. They covered decently against Daniel Jones, and all in all, didn't do too bad. But, look, Schwartz does deserve a lot of credit in what they've been able to do to the running game. I don't think they'll have too much trouble slowing down Marshawn Lynch and whatever running back Seattle runs out there. It's going to be really trying to keep Russell Wilson from doing too much damage with his legs as much as his arm.
keeping it on the defensive side of the ball, what did you think about Brandon Graham and Malcolm Jenkins? I thought those two played terrific, and they were definitely leaders out there on the field.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Graham, when you looked at his stats, and I put this in the grades, he had 1 sack, but honestly, he should have had 3 because he really affected 2 other sacks that Derek Barnett ended up getting credit for both, I believe. Graham was right there, right on Daniel Jones, and he had to step basically into Barnett's arms to avoid Graham. And look, Graham has had a really solid year. I've been impressed with the way he's come out, firing off the edge, and there's no doubt he's better when Barnett is there. And Barnett continuing to get healthy week after week, I think is getting, and we're seeing the signs of just how important that is. But Brandon Graham, very impressed. Malcolm Jenkins, you know how important he is to that run defense, which from a safety's perspective is not typical, but the way he plays it is he's been doing it here for years, and Schwartz really knows he can count on him. Malcolm knows what he sees. He knows when to shoot the hole. He knows when to try to get that back down, and find out where he's going. And I think that's been a huge, huge help as well the last 2 weeks for the way they've been able to handle, like we said, Zeke Elliott and Saquon Barkley. So Graham's playing well. It was nice to see Fletcher Cox. I mean, that play felt like it took an eternity from the moment that Jenkins knocked the ball out of Daniel Jones' hands until Fletcher got there. But you could tell along the way he was not going to be denied. Shoved Jones to the ground and went after it and got it. A really athletic play. And I think that shows you, it was nice to see because Cox, I think, has been really getting worn down the last couple of weeks. And Jernigan was back at a better level yesterday. And I think that may have helped Cox as well, too. So, these guys are playing well on defense. They're definitely got every reason to go into this game with their heads held high and believe that they can win from a defensive perspective. And look, this defense does play. It's been well documented. They play a lot better at home than they do on the road. And this game will be in Philly.
Well, we'd be remiss, Scott, if we got rid of you here before we announced that you did give out an F. You gave out an F to the medical tent and astutely pointed out that there was a time where Brandon Graham got hurt and couldn't even get into the medical tent because Craig James was in it before him. If that's not either a microcosm or a metaphor or whatever word you want to use to describe how the Eagles season has gone, that would be it. Just an unbelievable. And then now Brandon Brooks out for the year. It is just unbelievable what this team has had to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they might have dodged a bullet with Miles Sanders as well. But it was crazy yesterday. That thing was up left and right. And like you said, Graham couldn't even get in. Craig James was in there. And it's the second time this season I've given the injury tent an F. So, I don't know. They got to throw that thing in the trash or something else. They're going to be the first team in the NFL to have to get 2 injury tents on the sideline because it's just been that kind of year.
Well,
but
we've got a lot of
overcome it.
We've got a lot of firings going on across the NFL right now. We'll see if the Eagles blue tent survives Black Monday today. If not, maybe they have to bring back a green tent or something else. But that's our Scotty Grayson. You can read his Grayson grades at 97.3ESPN.com right now. You can see him on Fox 29 in Philadelphia. You can catch him on Twitter at sgraysonfox29. Always giving the great updates from the Eagles game and always on with us the day after an Eagles game with his Grayson's grades. It's a must read. Thanks for joining us, Scott.
I appreciate it, guys. Happy New Year.